Good morning and happy Salah celebrations to our Muslim brothers and sisters. It's a holiday for a lot of people, so I'm hoping more of you will be watching Off the Press and Plus TV Africa, where we bring you up to speed on all the headlines making the rounds in our newspapers. My name is Felicity Ezewuike, and I have with me a guest to help us make sense of some of these headlines, Tubosun Akeju.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming. All right, we'll start with the Punch newspaper. Presidential panel okays state police, Serap Kakol seek NAS action. Well, that is not so straightforward, actually. There's been some clarification, but that is what is on the headline this morning. Presidential panel okays state police, not the president. All right, we also have another one. Police arrest 38 bandits, kidnappers, recover 24 rifles. At the very top of the paper, we have reactions as Obasanjo asked Aisha Buhari to tell President the truth about insecurity. Court finds ex-Nemasa boss 42 million naira for stealing 225 million. That doesn't seem quite right. You're fining somebody 42 million for stealing 225 million. Don't quite get it. Anyway, I'll come to you in a bit. Principals aiding and abating exam fraud, says NECO. Neither here or there. Nigeria's fuel subsidy not supporting the poor. That's according to the World Bank. They seem to have something up their sleeve this morning. You might want to read details on page 28 of the paper. I'll go back to the bottom a bit now, where you will see Sanwo Olu finally signs 2019 873.5 billion naira budget. That's on the front page of the Punch. We also have MFM suspends pastor who raped impregnated 16-year-old. And then we have Presidential Task Force issues guidelines on Apapa gridlock. These are some of the headlines this morning. I want to take your reaction on any of this. Let's start with your first pick.
Okay, I think two caught my attention there, the issue of state police and subsidy. So I'll start with the state police. I think that we have to approach that with caution. We have the peculiarity of Nigeria, sometimes make some things that exist in the Western world or outside Nigeria be difficult, because we are one nation with many nations in it. You have different tribes. Our approach to things are quite different. When you have state police and you have weak institutions, what happens is you are going to see people breaking the process of implementing some of these things, which is very, very risky. So you have in the US, you have the LAPD, the NYPD, but in certain situations, you see the FBI come in and say, oh, it is not within the jurisdiction of the NYPD or the LAPD to investigate or to prosecute. In certain situations, you see, extreme situation, they're calling for the National Guard. In Nigeria, during elections, we have soldiers on the road. In the U.S., the soldiers do not carry arms outside the outside their place, their zones, so to speak. In Nigeria, you see them walking around. So while it's important for us to have, there's a need for state policing, so to speak. Allow me to use that word loosely. We also have to approach it with caution, because how do we control? What are the processes? Do we have strong institutions to be able to hold that thing? I usually believe that if you want to solve a problem, if you have a big problem, confine the problem to solve it. When you have it spread all over, imagine some of the lapses in the police in silos in Nigeria. We have a lot to deal with, so we have to be careful with implementing that. It's something we need, but it's something that also... Well,
I doubt if it's coming to implementation stage anytime soon, because the presidential aide has come out to clarify that it's just a panel report, not an approval from President Buhari. So I really don't, because it will take a lot to get that working in this country. Don't you think so?
So I think that I kind of understand the workings of, the Nigerian government a bit. In my professional parlance, I'll call this flying a kite. So they are a bit very disposed to the idea of implementing the state police. During the campaigns, I could read in between the lines that President Buhari and the Vice President are a bit disposed to the idea of having state police. What they're trying to do, again from a professional standpoint, because I'm a reputation manager, is to feel the pulse of the people, get people talking about the issue of state police so that it doesn't look like, oh, the panel came up and dumped it. Yes, the panel has proposed to it. That's not the only thing the panel proposed. So this has come to the forefront. Yes, they've not agreed, but it's important to have that blueprint. So when we're going to implement things like the TSA, even though it came from the World Bank, there was there was like a test of it, there was a proof of concept and all of that. So for things like this, we have to approach carefully to ensure that in an attempt to solve one problem, which is decentralized the primary security apparatus of the country, we do not create a bigger problem where you have state governors or people abusing the use of state police because the authority has now been decentralized. It's something that has to be approached carefully. Okay,
what do you make of this suspension of the pastor who raped and impregnated a 16-year-old? We actually have a rape documentary coming on Plus TV Africa. You should look out for it. It should be airing before the second week of June comes to an end. The promo is on our station at the moment. Yeah. It's this seeming growing culture of rape, this punitive measure that the MFN has taken to suspend the pastor. Is it enough? He raped and impregnated a 16-year-old.
I think the church, MFM, probably cannot go beyond suspending the manager. What is, however, what I call to question is when was the suspension and when did the church get to hear about it? So if there's a rape and the 16-year-old is pregnant, so that didn't happen yesterday, that didn't happen a week ago. And the fact that, the jury is out on it, but I think that we've had this issue have always been in our society. Because we're now living in a global village, news spread faster, information spread faster. It's coming to the fore. On radio yesterday, I was listening to a program, and then there was a conversation about pedophiles, and and it came up that we've always had pedophiles. We just didn't think of it that way. When the lady on radio was talking about how when she was young, her mom would tell her to go and buy something. She was just about 8 years old, and then there are these guys on the street that are calling her and say, "Oh, fine girl, come here," in Yoruba and all of that. And come to think about it, and I was like, why are they asking her to come? Do you understand? It was clear that she was young. She said she could pass as a young boy. And so why were they asking her to come? So we've always had, this menace in our society. It just all has now come to the fore. And I think that there's a need for a lot of education. At work, we're having a conversation about molestation, and one of the things during the training that we read is if you give someone, it starts as small as if you compliment the opposite sex, because I'm trying to have a gender balance here. Most of the time, it's the men that gives a compliment to the women. If you compliment the female of a female colleague, subordinate or not, and she tells you it's uncomfortable, you have to stop. Anything after she has said that the compliments are uncomfortable, sexual molestation. I think people need to be educated because these things do not happen spontaneously. There's a process that leads to things happening. So the so-called pastor raping a 16-year-old, there must have been a process that has led to that act being perpetrated. So I think that beyond just punishing, people need to be educated, and then there has to be things in place that allows us to prevent this thing, because it's just rather unfortunate. And I still don't know how a rape got to pregnancy. Those things make me very uncomfortable.
Well, we'll continue to push the conversation so people get more aware and move away from doing things like that. Yeah. I wouldn't let you move, or rather, I wouldn't let you go. Okay. We still have more time, but you need to talk on this. The Presidential Task Force issues guidelines on Apapa gridlock. Sanwo Olu is on the table now, and he's saying he's going to deal with that Apapa situation within the shortest possible time. Your thoughts on that Apapa situation?
Very, very much welcome. development from government. I mean, the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago, the next best time is now. I'm happy they're doing it, so we're not going to go to why they waited a long time to do it. And I hope that the process they will put in place will not just be punitive, but will also help in, preventing this constant issue of Apapa issue has always been there. I mean, it got so bad now that the private sector have had to move in to have like a tax arrangement with government to fix the road, because there's a road problem. There's also the issue of congestion. There's also the issue of, if you ask those guys to go, where are you asking them to go? So sometimes it's not enough to chase something away. You have to be able to provide the alternative that makes the implementation of what you've done sustainable. So I'm hoping that this will be properly thought through and implemented.
All right, let's see what the nation has for us this morning. The big one here is Buhari sends proposal on state police others to panel. The Punch captured it in a different way. It is at presidential panel, OK state police. The nation is saying Buhari sends proposal on state police others to panel. There you have it on your screen right now. At the top of the paper, you see Emefiele to unfold roadmap for economy. Details on page 7 of that paper. You also have Kwara governor raises panel on government property. Properties, yeah. Kwara governors raises panel on government properties. We also have a bit on today's Salah, says Sultan of Sokoto. Of course, we all now know that today is Salah, and our Muslim brothers and sisters are, just doing what they need to do to celebrate after a long period of fasting. We also have 4 soldiers injured as troops killed 20. MTN listing on exchange excites NCC. A bit of sports here. Raul insists on Nicole Obi for captain. And then at the bottom of the paper, you will see court restrains SEC over Orlando. Investors dump shares. That's another one for you on the front page. And just you see that black space there. Sanwo Olu signs 873.5 billion naira budget, other bill into law. That's the man himself signing those bills, acting strong at this very moment. There are other stories there on corruption could erode 67% of Nigeria's GDP by 2030. That's from PwC. Your thoughts on any of these headlines?
I think we talked about the issue of state police.
Yeah, sure we have.
Talking about corruption. I mean, I have this school of thought, and quite a number of people share with me that our modus vivendi and our modus operandi is corruption. Yeah.
Why would you say that? The government that is working so hard.
Yeah, because we've built systems around it. It's almost the norm sometimes to what would normally look like tip. And if you look at some of the gaps in governance that you've tried to plug, you would see the shock it creates in the system. And I'll make reference to one that I've mentioned already this morning, the TSA. While it doesn't look clearly like corruption, but something, okay, let me give you a classic example. President Buhari asked all the banks to return the government money to them. And there's a shock, almost a shock in the financial system, because those banks were sitting on that money, they were trading that money. Some of those accounts, the signatory to the account has left. There are 2 people that have come after the signatory to the account into office, and the ministry or the agency either didn't know, or there were some, background deals that were going on there, right? So proceed of corruption, so to speak. Then you remove that money from the financial system, and the financial system feels the shock. That's to show you that part of the things that were strengthening some of the banks were fought by corruption. So I think that what PwC is saying is something they're just bringing to the fore what has become, obvious, which goes back to what I said earlier, that we need to build strong institutions. We need to build and, follow processes so that things are done in a more empirical way. You can almost predict that, oh, if I have all it takes to get a particular job, the chances of me getting that particular job is there, as against, oh, I need to know someone, or what I need to do, even if I'm not competent enough, is to be able to give some kickbacks, and then things will get done. So, because these are the things that are increasing the cost of executing infrastructure projects, social projects, effectiveness of governance. So it won't be long that will not be able to. So the things that would normally cost $1 billion or dollars outside Nigeria, in Nigeria, are probably going to spend $3 billion.
But if you hold this position, what then becomes of this corruption fight that's been going on since the last administration? This is going on 5 years now. They just started the second term. So don't you think that instead of increasing, corruption should be minimizing? We
need a systemic change. The people in government, in private sector, everywhere, they didn't fall from the skies. They are people from our society. What we need to do is a complete reorientation of how we approach things. It's not like we don't have corruption, even in the advanced part of the world. What they've done is there are systems in place, there are punitive measures. So the story, one of the headlines this morning, someone stole money, and it seems like there's an option of fine. Not contempt of court, but something tells me that I want to find out, is the man going to jail? Because someone who stole a goat, someone who stole something less than that, was sent to jail. So why is this person given an option of fine? Because my friends say the difference between the man who has $1 billion and the man who has $10 billion is not really much. It's not the $9 billion. They almost have access to the same thing. They almost can afford almost the same thing, and all of that. So if a man has stolen 240 million, the influence that comes with 240 million, when you ask him to pay a fine, do we have enough punitive measures? But like I said, I don't have the details of that thing. It's not in the newspaper, and I'm hoping, that something will come out of it, because I don't understand that judgment. So I think for us to fix corruption, we have to be able to put systems in place. There have to be enough punitive measures for people to stay away from it, and there has to be a bit of equality in society. If you go back to the issue of forced subsidy, like the World Bank is saying that it's not fitting the poor. Absolutely. Because the average Nigerian, the middle class, who seems to be thinning away today, you have cars, you're the one buying fuel. The poor Nigerian is taking public transport, And if you remove fuel subsidy, what will happen is that you feel the effect in prices, because we don't have a mass transit system, right? So the poor will feel the pain again. So it is the mass transit system that can help the poor. So they said advanced countries are the countries where the poor and the rich can use mass transit system. Until we have that mass transit system that the poor and the rich can use, we're going to have that problem. So until we have a society where the poor man has access to the amenities, the average public amenities the rich man have access to, then you're going to continue to give room for everybody to want to get rich quick, because attaining the middle life, or the basic essence of life, becomes very, very difficult. So it's a whole systemic change.
Well, we still have more papers, but before we go to take the rest of the papers, we'll go on a very short break. Tubosun is still with us. Very glad to know you're still with us. I still have with me in the studio Reputation Manager Tubosun Akeju.
Yeah,
thanks for staying. All right, we'll go to the Vanguard newspaper now. We'll still have this day. We'll try and make that as quick as possible. State LG Police. Buhari orders fresh panel, gives 3-month deadline. That's on the front page. It has 3 riders, a 3-man panel to produce white paper, explains why the police must be reformed, repositioned, and then panel recommends dismissal of 37 SARS operatives. That's on the front page. The story inside is on page 5. At the very top of the paper, we have Buhari has powers to sack Ononge, appoint me acting CJN, tells court. Idel Fitri, bandits, terrorists can't hold Nigeria to ransom. That's part of the president's message that Buhari there. As Atiku Saraki, governors can glow, felicitate with Muslims and preach peace. All of them, everyone is preaching peace at this time. Let's see. Emefiele begins second tenor. That's also on the front page. The under story is captured here about court stopping SEC from moving against Tinubu Boyo. On page 10 is where we find the story on Vanguard. At the bottom, in fact, on the front of the paper, you will see spate of insecurity. I'll just raise it a bit for you there. See all of them, some of them bandits, guns, suspects anyway, until they're proven guilty. Underneath it, you will see Sanwo Olu signs budget into law. Bandits attacks and for a governor's convoy, killed 2 in Katsina. Okay, there are some other headlines here, but I just don't want us to waste so much time. I'll just go to you.
I think to sum it all, the security issue in the country calls for great concern. Beyond killing 20 today, killing 10 tomorrow, and all of that, if you understand, I mean, if we go back in time and not too far away, when you have people that have been weaponized in recent time and you even, you break into their stronghold and dissipate them, what happens is that you start to have pockets of crime in places around. And if care is not taken, in another close time, what you will have is they will become strengthened, and then you will have to move and go and, I think that to an extent, President Buhari has won to an extent the war against the terrorists in the north. And I think that some of them have now moved to other parts of the country. And I think that's one of the things that is causing a lot of violence. In other part, kidnapping, even in the southwest. I think even some parts of the north are also suffering from this thing. So I think it's very important to have an holistic view to this thing. The Kaduna Abuja road, the stories, they're still very fresh in our memory. So I think there has to be an holistic approach to security issues in the country.
I'm told we're out of time, so we'll just take a quick look at this day newspaper. Court stops sex removal. I think have we touched on that all through the papers today? Act on state police recommendation. It's also captured here on state police. We also have police lay siege to company headquarters. That's still under the sex removal of Oando's directors. Those are some of the stuff on the front page. Boko Haram captures Borno local government. That's on page 9 of the story, still on security matters. And then on the flip side of the paper, you have Tuesdays with Ruben Abate, the speech Buhari didn't make. All right, quick thoughts. We are out of time.
Well, President Buhari proclaims a National Assembly on Tuesday. I think that will be interesting to see things move very, very quickly. It's glad to see that the president seems to be moving faster this time, and it's a welcome development, I think.
I wish you had more time, but as always, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. Always a pleasure to know that you are behind the scene watching and getting to know what's going on in the papers. We're back again tomorrow morning. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the holiday. My name is Felicity Ezewuike.